I'm going to start my presentation now. Today we're going to talk about how to create an exercise plan, an exercise prescription, your guide to fulfilling all of your health hopes and dreams and achieving your goals. I want to first talk a little bit about why people exercise and why medical experts want us to exercise. I read a couple surveys about why people exercise, and this might not be surprising to you, but most people exercise or try and move their bodies in order to have some semblance of changing the way their body looks. So, managing their weight, losing weight, um, trying to fit into a certain outfit, exercising for an event that's coming up, going to the beach, looking different than you already look. So most of exercise reasons are for aesthetics. Some people exercise for better sleep. Some people exercise for a better mood. And those people are in the minority, at least on a couple surveys I looked up. And I think that jives with what I experience as a clinician. Most people exercise to lose weight. And to me, they're doing it wrong. So that's why I'm talking about this. And I support your goal of exercising to have a body transformation, basically, but you got to do it with a plan. And you can't be exercising, you got to be training. So this is piggybacking off last week's or last call's, not last week, but last call's talk on you got to train. You don't need to exercise. You have to be training. And there's a mindset thing going on there. So to piggyback on that, we have to create a plan. So first of all, you're going to want to write down a few specific things, and I'm going to help you with those today. And then the specifics of what you're going to be doing personally, that's where the personalization aspect of this comes in. So, but there's a few factors in in doing this that will help you achieve your goals. Like I said, most of them are body transformation. Factor one is consistency. Consistency is by and large the hardest thing for people to have when it comes to body transformation and training their body. And a number of factors go into that. But basically, when you read the literature from the American College of Sports Medicine or surveys and articles and papers about physicians trying to get people to exercise, it's about trying to help them be consistent. So I think breaking things up into manageable chunks, the smallest factor is like a week by week basis. So planning out your week and trying to have it all planned, when you're going to be doing stuff, what you're going to be doing on a week by week basis, and then reevaluating that plan every 6 weeks is really important. Some people do better every quarter, so changing your exercise plan every 12 weeks or so is fine. But I would recommend every 6 weeks you take a hard look at what you're doing and try and modify it. And hopefully that makes consistency a little bit easier, because if you set your goals from here to if your goal is to change your body, it's just too vague. You have to have really specific, consistent goals, and the goals should be completing your training, and then seeing progress in your training. So lifting weight and doing your cardio or whatever. So you want to get a piece of paper out, and it's Monday through Sunday or whatever, and you need to have everything planned out. So that's the action step. Number one is write down the week. So I don't think exercise every day is definitely not necessary. You got to understand that we all have a stress cup, and our stress cup gets filled to the brim with just managing life. So sleeping, stress of work, commute, interpersonal relationships, our nutrition or lack thereof, sleep, good or bad, those all factor into filling up what is known as the stress cup. And then if you add vigorous exercise or vigorous training on top of that, your stress cup can overflow and you can have health challenges. So you got to really take a good look at your life. Exercise is inherently stressful. It's inherently inflammatory. When you exercise, you get inflamed, and inflammation is a dirty word when in healthcare settings, especially when you have chronic inflammation. So if you're chronically inflamed from stress and your commute and a poor diet and lack of sleep, and then you add vigorous training and exercise on top of that, it's not going to be a good result. And I think that's part of the consistency issue. So look at your stress cup and really take an honest approach to creating a training schedule Monday through Sunday. So do that. So I'm going to recommend a couple of specific things. This is my plan for everybody. One of those days you need to do interval training. So you need to do a set of exercises in a on-off type of way where you go hard and then you go easy, and then you go hard, then you go easy. I'm going to talk about interval training in the upcoming series, so please stay tuned for more specifics on that. But one day a week, I don't care what day it is, you need to do a session of interval training. It could be 2 days a week, but I want you to max out at 2 days a week. So write down Monday through Friday what day you want to do interval training. 2 days a week need to be strength training. So you need to exercise all the major muscle groups. And which ones are those? It's your legs, it's your chest, and your back. And then you may be thinking, what about core? Core is not a priority. Because if you train your chest, you train your back, you train your legs, your core is going to be engaged and be stronger. If you overtrain your core, you're going to be disappointed with reaching your goals. So you can't spot train fat on the body. It doesn't work like that. You can't do enough sit-ups to get a thinner stomach. In fact, if you are doing a lot of crunches and sit-ups and like your diet's poor and your stress is really high, you're going to get thicker core muscles. But if you don't lose weight on top of that, you're just going to look bigger. So that's potentially another thing that is just another hard thing for people to kind of see coming. So legs, chest, and back, those are the three areas. If you want to add a little bit of core on top of that, I'm fine with it. And here's your recipe for strength training. Your number of repetitions for each muscle group and number of sets needs to be planned out. And you usually want to do it in 2, maybe 3 days in order to get the recipe correct. So here's the recipe based on the 2010 Journal Strength and Conditioning, came out with a position paper on this, and based on a lot of studies and a lot of research, a lot of numbers. So for each muscle group, you need to do about, I would say, minimum 10 sets a week of at least 10 repetitions of a weight. So if you're doing a chest exercise, and let's say you're laying on the ground and you're pushing a weight up in the air, you need to do minimum 10 sets a week of at least, they say 8 to 12 repetitions. I'm just going to give you a nice round number of 10 repetitions per set. So hopefully that makes sense to everybody. So every major muscle group, you need to get 10 to 20 sets per week. And to make a set complete, you have to do about 10 repetitions. So that's your legs, your back, and your chest. So 2 days a week of strength training, 1 day a week of interval training, and then I'm going to have you have 2 active rest days. So an active rest day is a day where you might go for a run. And you may be thinking, wait a minute, I thought running was my primary form of exercise. A lot of people do. So I'm a little bit biased. That's not. That is, running and doing cardiovascular, like low intensity cardiovascular training, should not be your primary training modality. But you're allowed to do it. I will allow it, but only on your active rest days. So actually going for a run or getting on a bike and doing some spinning or whatever, elliptical machine to get some cardiovascular training in on a kind of an easy state or whatever, should be 1 to 2 days a week. And those are considered your active rest days. But what else can you do on your active rest days? You can do things like going for a long walk, going for the hike you want to go on that you've been planning for, an hour or whatever of yoga, doing some Tai Chi, playing a sport, going and finding an open tennis court and playing tennis. Those are your active rest days. Those are your recovery days. Those should not primarily be your training modalities. So when you are making an exercise plan and you're thinking, I'll run 3 miles a session 4 times a week, that plan is not going to work for a number of reasons. And I would like to answer questions about that if you have questions, because most people don't think that way. Most people are thinking, all right, I'm running every day this week, or I'm doing Peloton 6 days a week. That's going to result in you potentially not achieving your goals. And there's a number of reasons for that. So 2 days a week, you do nothing. 2 days a week, you're not even thinking about training. You're just relaxing. You're doing other stuff. And that's your week. So a couple active recovery days, that's when you go for a run. That's when you go for a swim. That's when you do your yoga. That's when you maybe hop on your spin bike. 2 days a week of that. 2 days a week of strength training, the 3 major muscle groups, and then a day a week of doing intervals. And you can kind of shift those around, but if you do that, and on a week-by-week basis, you get your training in, and then on every 6 weeks or so, you reevaluate where you're at, you're going to be successful. But here's the kicker. You have to do progression. You can't just get stuck doing the same thing all the time. And you have to progress it in 4 ways, okay? I don't want to make this too complicated, but you have to understand this. There's a principle in cardiovascular training and strength training called the FIT principle, and I'm going to outline that now. And so these are variables that you shuffle around when you start to reach a training plateau. And most people reach a weight loss plateau. So you start a new training program. You're like, all right, cool. I'm going to be training my muscles twice a week. I'm going to be doing interval training. I'm going to go for a couple runs a week. And for maybe a month or 2, you're achieving your training goals, which again, most people is weight loss. So you're losing weight. You're like, sweet, this is working. Then you plateau. At that plateau part, then you have to work on the FIT principle, okay? And the FIT principle is frequency. So how many times a week you're doing the workouts. And so then you add stress to your system. You add more frequency as one of your variables that you can tweak. So if you're doing HIIT 1 time a week and you start to plateau with your weight loss, then you can add another day a week of HIIT. Or maybe you add not another HIIT session, maybe you do more strength training. And so your frequency, how many days a week you are doing the exercise, you have to shift. That's one potential place to go. The other one is intensity. I like intensity more than frequency. So improving your intensity looks like, for if it's cardio, so you're looking for your heart rate. So let's say you're doing cardiovascular training using intervals, and your heart rate is, you're checking in with your heart rate at the end of your intervals, and you're going at about 140 beats a minute. Well, you can improve your intensity by working harder and get your heart rate up. And you can improve your heart rate during those HIIT training sessions, or maybe it's your strength training. You can improve your intensity with strength training by maybe doing a couple more repetitions. So let's say you're doing 10 repetitions per set, maybe you do 12 repetitions per set. And so you slowly and incrementally increase your intensity as a way to modify your variables. The other thing is your time. So you can FIT, frequency, intensity, and then the third one is time. So the time is an element where you're basically spending the amount of time during a session. So you can take your HIIT from doing 10 minutes of HIIT to doing 12 minutes of HIIT, or maybe doing 15 minutes of HIIT. And I hope you're getting a little bit of a idea that you don't want to dramatically increase your variable here by much. The rule is about 5 to 10% increase in your variables. So the time you spend doing stuff can totally be modified. And then the type, and this is a really fun one. But you don't want to change the type of exercise you're doing too quickly. So every 6 weeks to 12 weeks, that's when you want to modify the type of exercise you're doing to change and have your body start readapting to these new stressors. So the FIT principle is super important to understand when you start to plateau, when your body stops losing weight, or you stop making improvements in your training. You have to apply the FIT principle. I like intensity and I like time as the strategies to do kind of on the fly. So let's say you do your week, you're like, this this chest exercise is getting super easy. I need to do more. So, add a couple repetitions. But then every 6 weeks or so, that's when you might reevaluate the type of exercise you're doing. Maybe you are doing intervals on a bike and it's getting really easy and you've totally plateaued. So if you do intervals on a treadmill, you're going to have to start over, probably at the bottom of your training, and then work up your intervals on a treadmill, or work up your intervals on a rowing machine, or work up your intervals using your body weight. Maybe you've been running in place for 6 weeks to do high intensity interval training, and that's getting really easy. So you start doing burpees, and going from running in place to doing burpees is huge. And so the type of exercises you do for your cardio and your strength training can change, but don't change it too often. Every 6 weeks or 12 weeks or so. And I mentioned it, but you don't want to increase your stress on the system more than about 10%. So you just look at it and see what you're doing, and then you add about 10% of stress every couple of weeks, every 6 weeks, or when you perceive that this exercise or the thing you're doing is just getting too easy. So that's as easy as I can make it. Just in summary, if you want to achieve your health goals around fitness, you have to have a plan. The plan should consist of what you're doing every week. And the plan of all the books I've read, of all the experts I've listened to, of 11 years of clinical practice, is 2 days a week of strength training, 1 day a week of interval training, 2 active rest days where you go for a swim, you play a sport, you go on a hike, you go for a walk, you do something like that, maybe even a run. And then 2 days a week where you're not doing anything. You slowly increase the stress on your system as things get easy. You change it up every 6 weeks at the minimum, and then you don't want to go for about 3 months without changing the exercises and the work you're doing, and then you'll be successful. And that's how to make an exercise plan. It really works. I've seen it work clinically, and that's what I do personally. And I am extremely not wasting time averse. And so this is as succinctly as I can make this plan for you.